The first mistake was leaving my Bluetooth headphones on the coffee table. The second, and far more catastrophic one, was underestimating the predatory nature of nearby devices. I was sprawled on my bed, scrolling through lecture notes, when a sound, both intimately familiar and utterly horrifying, crackled to life. It was a ragged, breathless panting, a sound I hadn't heard since a vicious leg cramp had seized me in the dead of night a week ago. My blood ran cold. The sound wasn't coming from my phone. It was emanating from my headphones, which were now blinking with the telltale blue light of a successful connection. A connection to the phone belonging to the only other person in our dorm suite, my roommate Alex. Just as the mortifying audio replayed a particularly strained gasp, the bathroom door swung open. Alex emerged, a cloud of steam billowing behind him as he casually dried his dark, tousled hair with a towel. He paused, his sharp hazel eyes locking onto mine from across the room. A slow, knowing smirk spread across his lips, a look that sent a fresh wave of heat crawling up my neck. I shot up from the bed, my mind a frantic blur of escape routes. The library. Yes, the library was a sanctuary. I snatched my laptop and a textbook, making a desperate bid for the door. But he was faster. With an effortless grace that was infuriatingly typical of him, Alex moved to block my path, leaning against the doorframe with one broad shoulder. "In a hurry, Liam," he murmured, his voice a low, velvety rumble that always did strange things to my insides. It was the same voice that had offered soothing words as he'd massaged the knot out of my calf that night, his strong hands working a magic that had been both a relief and a torment. He had been there. He had heard these exact sounds before. But now, context was everything. Hearing it live during a moment of agony was one thing. Hearing a recording of it, saved and replayed, was something else entirely. It felt predatory. "Since you've already heard the recording," he continued, his gaze unwavering, "why not let me hear the live version?" My face, already warm, ignited. "Pervert," I choked out, the word feeling flimsy and inadequate. My hands, clutching my books, began to tremble. "Why would you record me?" He pushed off the doorframe, taking a slow step towards me. The towel was now slung loosely around his neck, framing a collarbone I had spent far too much time trying not to stare at. "Record you? Liam, your phone must have accidentally recorded it and then helpfully synced to my cloud. Technology, eh?" His tone was light, teasing, but his eyes held a glint of something deeper, something more challenging. I tried to sidestep him, but he mirrored my movement, trapping me between his body and the edge of my desk. My back hit the cool wood with a soft thud. He was close now, so close I could feel the warmth radiating from his skin and smell the clean scent of his soap. "Now that the cat's out of the bag," he whispered, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial hush that sent a shiver down my spine. "Shouldn't I get the real-time experience?" "Screw you, Alex," I snapped, my voice shaking despite my best efforts to sound defiant. This wasn't the easygoing, perpetually cheerful roommate I thought I knew. This was someone else, someone who saw right through the carefully constructed walls I had built around myself. His jaw tightened. "You started this, Liam." "I started nothing," I protested, my voice rising. I'm not gay." The lie felt like ash in my mouth. "Really?" He raised an eyebrow, a picture of cool skepticism. "Then what about asking me to bring you a fresh towel when you're in the shower, knowing I'll have to open the door? Or how your foot just accidentally keeps brushing against mine under the table at dinner?" "I don't shower with my clothes on," I retorted, my mind scrambling for excuses. "And the foot thing? That's just nervous fidgeting." His expression darkened, the playful glint in his eyes replaced by something more intense. "Then why did I see gay porn open on your laptop last week?" My breath hitched. "My friend sent me that link as a prank," I stammered, the lie sounding pathetic even to my own ears. Since when had he become so observant? Since when did he think I was into him? "So none of it meant anything?" he pressed, his voice tight with an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. "Nothing," I lied again, shoving past him with more force than was necessary. I couldn't stand being under his dissecting gaze for another second. The truth was, I had lied about everything. I am gay. And a significant, inconvenient part of me was very, very into Alex. But he could never know that. Not now. I fled the room, his final words echoing in the sudden, deafening silence. The carefully balanced ecosystem of our shared space had been shattered, and I had a sinking feeling that nothing would ever be the same. The velvet deception. The disaster in our dorm room created a chasm between us. For days, Alex and I moved like ghosts in a shared haunting, the air thick with unspoken words. The easy camaraderie we'd once had, the casual jokes over laundry and late-night study sessions, had evaporated, replaced by a stiff, suffocating silence. I timed my entries and exits to avoid him, seeking refuge in the campus library until the early hours of the morning, returning only when I was sure he'd be asleep. The change was not lost on my best friend, Ben. We were grabbing breakfast at the campus diner, and he watched me push my eggs around my plate with a concerned frown. "You and Alex have a fight?" he finally asked, his voice gentle. Ben had a knack for seeing through my carefully constructed defenses. I shrugged, feigning indifference. "Something like that." "You guys were fine last week," he pressed. "Now you look like you're one wrong word away from committing murder every time his name comes up. You should talk it out. It can't be fun living in a war zone." Just then, our resident advisor, Mark, walked past our table on his way out of the diner. Ben's eyes immediately darted down to his coffee cup, a faint blush coloring his cheeks. Mark gave a curt nod in our direction, his expression unreadable, before disappearing out the door. The two of them had been acting strange around each other for weeks, another silent tension I didn't have the energy to unpack. Ben's advice, however well-intentioned, felt impossible. Alex had tried to bridge the gap. He'd left a coffee on my desk one morning, a peace offering I'd pointedly ignored. He'd asked if I wanted to grab lunch, an invitation I'd shut down with a curt, "I'm busy." Each rejected attempt seemed to chip away at his usual sunny disposition, replacing it with a quiet frustration. That frustration finally boiled over a week after the incident. He cornered me after our shared macroeconomics lecture, just as I was packing my bag. The classroom was emptying out, leaving us in a pool of awkward silence. "Liam." His voice was tight, stripped of its usual warmth. He leaned against the door frame, effectively blocking my only exit. "Do you really hate me this much? You haven't looked at me in a week." "I told you," I said, my voice flat as I refused to meet his gaze. "I'm not interested. Stop wasting your time. Can I at least try to win you over?" His jaw clenched, a stubborn fire igniting in his hazel eyes. "What's your type? Tell me. I'll work on it." A bitter, hysterical laugh almost escaped me. My type? My type was 6'2" with dark, messy hair, a smile that could disarm armies, and an infuriatingly perceptive gaze. My type was standing right in front of me. Desperate to end the conversation and push him away for good, I decided to build a wall of lies so high he'd never be able to climb it. My type. I sighed, finally looking at him with an expression of weary condescension. I like sweet, blushing girls. The kind who know how to flirt and aren't afraid to be feminine. You'll never be that. Wrong hardware, buddy. To drive the point home, I added the final, crushing blow. Plus, I'm already seeing someone. His expression shuddered, the fire in his eyes extinguished and replaced by a cold darkness. "Who?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "None of your business," I snapped, shoving past his now unresisting frame. I didn't dare look back, but I could feel his gaze on me as I fled down the hallway. I heard his shoulders slump against the doorframe in a quiet sound of defeat. "Fine," his voice followed me, faint and hollow. "I'll leave you alone." I had won. I had driven him away. So why did it feel so much like I had lost? The truth was, the girl I had described was a phantom, a complete fabrication. The person I was seeing existed only in my headphones. For 2 years, my world had revolved around a voice. A smooth, dark chocolate baritone that narrated my favorite true crime podcast, Midnight Murmurs. The voice belonged to an anonymous actor who went by the pseudonym Nix. He was a legend in the audio drama community, a vocal chameleon whose talent was matched only by his mystique. I was, for lack of a better word, completely and utterly infatuated with a man I had never seen. That Sunday, I pulled on my sharpest jeans and my favorite band t-shirt, my heart thrumming with a nervous energy that had nothing to do with Alex. Nix, the faceless god of the airwaves, was doing a rare in-person fan event downtown, signing autographs at a convention near campus. The venue was a chaotic swarm of devotion. Fans clutched limited edition posters and audio drama scripts, their excited chatter filling the air. I held my own treasures, a pristine, hardbound copy of the Midnight Murmurs, case files, and my autograph book, my hands slick with sweat. Then he appeared on stage and the room erupted. He wore a black snapback pulled low over his eyes and a simple black face mask, a remnant of the pandemic era that now served to preserve his anonymity. But damn, even with half his face covered, the sharp, confident line of his jaw was unmistakable. We all screamed like lunatics. It wasn't until he sat down at the signing table and began to greet the first fans that a sense of unease began to prickle at the back of my mind. The way he moved, the set of his shoulders, it was familiar. As I shuffled closer in the long line, I noticed the long, dark lashes that framed his eyes. They were strikingly, achingly familiar. My turn came. My heart hammered against my ribs as I stepped forward and placed my book on the table. His gloved hand brushed against mine as he reached for it, and a jolt of electricity, warm and shocking, shot up my arm, making my ears burn. And then I saw it. On the webbing of his thumb, just visible past the edge of his glove, was a pale, crescent-shaped birthmark. My blood turned to ice. My stomach plummeted. I had seen that exact same mark 100 times. On the hand that passed me the TV remote. On the hand that steadied my arm when I stumbled. On the hand that had so expertly kneaded the cramp from my leg. Before I could bolt, before I could process the cataclysmic collision of my two worlds, he looked up. His eyes, the same sharp hazel eyes that had cornered me in the classroom, crinkled above the mask in a gesture of friendly recognition. "Thanks for the support, Liam." The voice that spoke my name was not the casual, friendly tone of my roommate. It was the smooth, dark chocolate, velvet ensign baritone of Nix. The voice that had narrated my dreams and fueled my fantasies for 2 years. The voice that belonged, impossibly, to Alex. The public execution. Time seemed to warp and bend. The roar of the crowd, the cheerful patter of the event host, Alex's voice, it all merged into a distorted, meaningless hum. My brain was a frantic hamster on a wheel, sprinting but going nowhere. Alex. Nix. Nix. Alex. The two identities crashed together in my mind, a head-on collision that left my reality a smoldering wreck. How had I lived with him for an entire semester and never recognized his voice? The one voice I could pick out of 1,000. The one voice that was a constant, soothing presence in my life. Proof, I thought with a dizzying lurch, that voice actors were more than just performers, they were supernatural shapeshifters. And then a second, more terrifying realization hit me like a physical blow. Alex had heard every word I'd said in that classroom. He knew I'd lied about my type. He knew I'd lied about seeing someone. And now he knew that the someone I wasn't seeing, the idol I was hopelessly obsessed with, was him. I was halfway to the emergency exit, moving on pure, animal instinct, when the microphone crackled, amplifying a voice that would haunt my nightmares. "And let's give a warm welcome to our next lucky fan," the host boomed, his voice dripping with manufactured enthusiasm. "Give it up for Midnight Murmurs Maniac." A spotlight, hot and unforgiving as an interrogation lamp, swung through the darkened room and pinned me in its beam. I froze, one foot in front of the other, a deer caught in the headlights of my own personal apocalypse. Every head in the room turned towards me. I could feel their collective gaze, a physical weight pressing down on me. On stage, Alex's visible eye crinkled above his mask. It wasn't a smile. It was the look of a predator who had just cornered his prey. My legs moved of their own accord, carrying me onto the stage in a numb, robotic shuffle. The thrill that should have come from meeting my idol was completely eclipsed by an acute, soul-crushing awkwardness. "All right, Midnight Murmurs Maniac," the host said, slinging an arm around my rigid shoulders. "The rules are simple. Our man of mystery, Nix, will choose an excerpt from one of his audio dramas to recite for you. All you have to do is correctly identify the scene it's from. A test to prove you're his #1 fan. You've got 30 seconds. This should be a piece of cake for a die-hard supporter like you, right? I managed a weak, strangled nod. My entire fan identity was on the line. I had listened to every second of his work, memorized entire monologues, spent countless hours on fan forums dissecting his performances. This should have been easy. The game began. Alex stood up and walked towards me. The crowd quieted to a reverent hush. He leaned in, his face uncomfortably close to mine, and the familiar, clean scent of his soap filled my senses, grounding me in the horrifying reality of the situation. His voice, when it came, was no longer Alex's. It was Nix's, a deep, velvety caress that bypassed my ears and seemed to vibrate directly in my bones. "You're hurting me," he murmured, the words a soft, intimate plea. "Can't you be gentler?" The air was sucked from my lungs. The audience let out a collective gasp. He leaned closer still, his next words coming slower, each syllable dripping from his lips like warm, dark honey. "Should I really have to teach you this?" The room exploded. Girls in the front row screamed until their voices cracked. A wave of heat washed over me, so intense I felt lightheaded. My brain, already reeling, completely short-circuited. Since when did Midnight Murmurs, a true crime podcast, have dialogue this charged? I searched the frantic archives of my memory, but came up completely, utterly blank. The 30-second timer buzzed, a sound of brutal finality. The reveal only deepened my humiliation. The host, grinning from ear to ear, played the original clip. It was from a bonus episode about historical medical practices. A scene depicting a young soldier teaching his clumsy older brother how to properly bandage a wound. A completely, devastatingly innocent first aid lesson. Alex had deliberately twisted the delivery, infusing the lines with a sensual, suggestive heat designed to do one thing: trick me. That bastard. I shot him a glare that could have melted steel, only to receive a shameless, unapologetic wink in return. Ouch! Looks like someone might be a fake fan after all, the host teased, and the crowd laughed along. No, I've followed him for 2 years. I protested, the words tumbling out of me in a desperate rush. I couldn't let my reputation, my one source of pride, be destroyed like this. I grabbed my phone, fumbling to pull up the fan forum app. Look, I have the daily check-in badges to prove it. I shoved the phone forward, intending to show the host. But in my haste, my thumb brushed against the wrong icon on my screen, the cast button. On the giant display behind the stage, which had been showing the event's logo, my phone screen flickered to life, mirrored for the entire audience to see. It wasn't the fan forum that appeared. It was my private message thread with Nix. The crowd went feral. A roar of shock and delight, louder than any of the screams before it, filled the auditorium. And there they were, broadcast in high-definition glory, every single cringeworthy, mortifying DM I had ever sent to the man I now knew was my roommate. "Let me be your good boy. I'll wag my tail whenever you ring my bell. Is it hot in here, or is it just the sound of your voice melting my inhibitions?" And the one that made me want to claw my own skin off, the horrifyingly explicit wordplay about him helping me up versus getting me hard. "Please tell me this isn't being live-streamed," I whispered, my voice cracking, my entire body trembling. The host, bless his black, predatory heart, leaned in and smirked. "Don't worry," he said, his voice a stage whisper amplified by the microphone. "We'll pixelate your face during the broadcast." The balcony confession. I didn't just become national cringe material. I became the undisputed king of a country I never wanted to visit. The walk of shame off that stage felt longer than a marathon. I could feel hundreds of pairs of eyes on me, some amused, some sympathetic, all dissecting my utter and complete humiliation. I didn't wait for the event to end. I slipped out a side door and ran, not stopping until the burning in my lungs was more painful than the fire in my cheeks. Alex didn't return to our dorm until well after midnight. By then, I had barricaded myself in a fortress of denial, my laptop open to a frenetic online game, the rapid-fire clicks of my mouse the only sound in the room. I didn't look up when he came in. I kept my eyes glued to the screen, pretending to be utterly engrossed in a digital battle, even as my character died a dozen gruesome deaths. My greatest fear had materialized. My roommate, the man whose approval I had unknowingly craved in two separate realities, now knew the full, pathetic extent of my obsession. He was quiet for a long time, moving around the room with a deliberate slowness. I could hear the rustle of his jacket being taken off, the soft thud of his shoes on the floor. Finally, he walked out onto the small balcony that adjoined our room. I was in the middle of hanging my damp laundry on the clothesline, a mundane chore that felt surreal after the day's events. His shadow fell over me, long and imposing in the dim light from the room. "Thought you were straighter than steel bars," came that infuriatingly smooth, infuriatingly familiar voice. It was Nix's voice, laced with the casual amusement of Alex. The combination was lethal. "Don't," I choked out, my ears burning a furious crimson. I refused to turn around, keeping my back to him as I fumbled with a clothespin. His chuckle was a low, resonant vibration in the cool night air. "Who's this midnight murmurs maniac who's been flooding my DMs for months?" he continued, taking a step closer. "The one begging to be my pet? The one who wants me to play with him?" His voice was a velvet purr, each word landing with an obscene weight. The plastic clothespin snapped in two in my trembling hand. "Oh, and you also said," he added, his tone dripping with mock seriousness, "that my voice was only an 82 out of 100. The other 18 points, if I recall correctly, required first-hand experience to properly evaluate." Panic, hot and sharp, finally overrode my paralysis. I whirled around, clamping a hand over his mouth. "Shut up," I hissed, my eyes darting nervously towards our other roommates, Mark and Ben, who were thankfully engrossed in their own worlds, headphones securely in place as they binged some drama on their laptops. Those pickup lines were just recycled jokes from the internet. Don't take them seriously. He pulled my hand away easily, his lips quirking into that mischievous smirk I was beginning to despise. He leaned in until his breath tickled my earlobe, sending a jolt down my spine. "Correction," he whispered, his voice a sinful rumble. "My score is higher than 18. Care to verify?" A strangled noise of pure frustration escaped my lips. I stomped on his foot hard. "Verify my ass, you pervert." He didn't even flinch. He just laughed, a rich, genuine sound that echoed in the small space. He lounged against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching me fume with the detached amusement of a zookeeper observing a particularly riled-up primate. Why get so mad when I'm just playing along? Those messages were for Nix. I snarled, grabbing the front of his t-shirt in a fist. "Not for you. You mention this to anyone, ever again, and I swear I'll break your nose." His eyes crinkled with that same infuriatingly fond look he'd given me on stage, as if my threats were nothing more than the playful swipes of a kitten. All right, he said, gently prying my fingers from his shirt. "I get it." The fight drained out of me, replaced by a wave of disorienting confusion. Alex had always been the perfect roommate, the guy who shared his expensive snacks, helped me debug my coding assignments, and never complained about my messy habits. Our easy, comfortable camaraderie was what made this whole revelation so much worse. How could my digital fantasy, my anonymous, faceless crush, materialize as the guy who borrowed my calculus notes and left his socks on the floor? The collision of my two worlds had left me spinning, untethered and utterly lost. The next afternoon, during what should have been our mandatory swim class, I ditched. I couldn't face him, not in the unforgiving fluorescent lights of the aquatic center, and certainly not with both of us in nothing but swim trunks. Instead, I kept a promise I'd made to a friend, Lucas Brown, the charismatic captain of the university's esports team. I joined his squad to help them crush the perpetually arrogant business majors in a League of Legends tournament. 2 landslide victories later, my phone buzzed with an urgent text. It was Alex. "Get here now. Coach just announced a pop quiz. 100-meter freestyle. I'll cover for you. Say you're in the bathroom." "Gotta go," I said to Lucas, already unplugging my headset before the third match had even loaded. "Dude, you were on fire," Lucas praised, clapping me on the shoulder as I scrambled to my feet. That triple kill was insane. But I was already gone, sprinting across campus towards the aquatic center. I skidded into the locker room, my lungs screaming, and found it blessedly empty. Thank God. I had just grabbed my swimsuit from my locker when a nearby shower curtain rustled. Alex emerged, shirtless, a towel in his hands as he dried his hair. Water droplets slid down his toned chest and over the sharp lines of his abs. My eyes, the traitors, followed one droplet's path down his torso until it disappeared below the towel slung low on his hips. He caught me staring. Of course, he did. A slow, lazy smirk spread across his face. Like what you see, he drawled, his voice echoing slightly in the tiled room. No need to peek anymore, Liam. Delusional much? I snapped, my face burning as he deliberately, pointedly, dropped his towel to the floor. I'm just here to change. The sweet potato gambit. Where'd you disappear to earlier? Alex asked, leaning against the lockers with a casual arrogance that set my teeth on edge. He made no move to cover himself, standing there as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Helping a friend, I muttered, my eyes fixed firmly on the combination lock of my locker. I could feel his gaze on me, hot and probing. Let me guess, he said, and the way his voice dipped made my spine stiffen. Lucas again. Before I could formulate a retort, the shrill, piercing sound of the coach's whistle cut through the air, followed by the distant slam of an office door. Footsteps echoed in the hallway, heading our way. The coach. He couldn't find me here, just arriving when I was supposed to have been in the bathroom for the last 20 minutes. Panic, cold, and absolute seized me. Without a single rational thought, I acted. I grabbed Alex's arm, shoved him into the nearest locker room stall, and slammed the flimsy door shut just as the heavy tread of the coach's footsteps passed the entrance and continued towards the restrooms. Relief washed over me, a dizzying, lightheaded wave. And then it crashed, replaced by the horrifying awareness of my own actions. I was still pinning Alex against the tiled wall. My hands were pressed flat against his bare, damp chest. Our bodies were flush against each other in the cramped space, his scorching body heat seeping through my thin t-shirt, turning my skin to fire. I tried to pull away, but his gaze, which had turned from amused to molten, held me captive. His fingers, strong and warm, suddenly tightened around my waist, stilling my retreat. Alex, you. Shoo, he whispered, his thumb brushing over my lips, silencing me. The touch was featherlight, but sent a jolt straight to my core. Keep shouting and the coach is going to find two guys hiding in a locker room stall together. Then what will people think? Then let go, I managed, my voice a strained breath. A slow smirk spread across his face. Make me, he challenged, his voice dropping into that sinful Nick's baritone. You jumped me first, remember? His breath ghosted over my earlobe as he leaned in closer. Now, where were we? Yes. My performance evaluation. He paused, letting the words hang in the hot, humid air between us. Want to check out the goods? I'm pretty invested in getting that 100% rating from you. You jerk, I seethed, the words lacking any real venom. I kicked his shin, a desperate, clumsy attempt to create some space. He didn't dodge. Instead, he released a low, guttural groan, a sound that vibrated from his chest directly into mine. It wasn't just a sound of pain, it was textured, resonant, with a crisp, sinful rasp that felt like it was engineered in a sound lab to destroy my defenses. As a voice connoisseur, as a Knicks fanatic, that gravelly hitch wrecked me on a cellular level. My brain short-circuited. My face flushed a violent crimson. I scrambled away from him and into the adjacent stall, my hands shaking so badly I could barely unbutton my jeans to change into my swim trunks. During the warm-up laps, I kept glancing towards the locker room, but Alex didn't emerge. That suffocating heat we'd shared, the echo of that groan, flashed through my mind. Crap. Maybe he wasn't kidding. I glanced down at myself, floating in the cool water, and cursed him. After practice, a text from Lucas popped up on my phone, asking about dinner. We wound up at the campus diner near Eastgate, the familiar chatter and smell of greasy food a welcome anchor to reality. While we waited for our burgers, Lucas darted out and returned a minute later with a paper bag from a street vendor. Winter's perfect hand warmer, he announced, pulling out 2 enormous roasted sweet potatoes, steam rising from their split skins. He handed me the largest one, a monstrous tuber easily the size of my forearm. "Here, Liam." I stared at it. Certain inappropriate, locker room stall-related imagery immediately flooded my mind, triggering a sudden and complete loss of appetite. "Not hungry?" Lucas asked, already digging into his own. "Not right now," I mumbled, setting the offending potato on the table. During our walk back to the dorms, the crunch of fallen leaves beneath our sneakers a rhythmic counterpoint to our conversation, Lucas talked excitedly about the upcoming League of Legends championship. "Our college is going to dominate," he said, his confidence infectious. "You'll come watch, right? With your skills on the team, it's an easy win." "Thanks for the faith," I said, a genuine smile touching my lips for the first time all day. He ruffled my hair, a casual, friendly gesture he did with all his friends. "Anytime, man." As we reached the entrance to our dorm building, a familiar figure stepped out of the shadows. It was Alex. His gaze was cool, almost icy, as it flickered between me and Lucas, lingering for a moment on Lucas's hand still resting on my head. "Hey man, I'll see you tomorrow," Lucas said, giving my shoulder a final squeeze before heading off towards his own dorm. I headed upstairs, acutely aware of Alex falling into step right behind me. The silence was heavy-charged. "No wonder you rushed off after class," he said finally, his voice flat. "You went to see him?" "Yep," I said, trying to sound nonchalant. "He treated me to dinner." Alex frowned, his brow furrowing. "Why do you never agree when I offer to buy you a meal?" I didn't have an answer for that. "Because with you it's different. Because with you it feels like it means something." I couldn't say that. He grabbed my arm, stopping me at the door to our suite. His expression was unusually serious. "Liam, is Lucas the one you like?" "Of course not," I said, the denial immediate and truthful. Lucas was a great friend, but he was straight as an arrow. And besides, as a voice connoisseur, his tone just didn't do it for me. The tension in Alex's shoulders seemed to dissipate, a wave of relief washing over his features. "Then who is it?" he pressed. "Not telling," I said. The truth was, I liked no one in real life. My only crush had been a voice-acting persona named Nyx, and that fantasy had crashed and burned in the most spectacular way possible. Remembering the sweet potato still in my hand, I thrust it at him. "Here," I said, my voice gruff. "It's still warm." "Have it." A slow, genuine smile curved Alex's lips, reaching his eyes. "Thanks," he said, taking it from me. "How do you know I love these?" I didn't, I lied, pulling my keys out. "I just wanted it out of my sight." The unspoken symphony. Back in the dorm, the atmosphere was thick with its own quiet dramas. Ben emerged from the shower, toweling his hair, his eyes flicking nervously towards Mark, who was already in bed, headphones on. "I'm heading to sleep," Ben mumbled, not quite meeting anyone's gaze. "I'll leave the lights on for you guys." Alex didn't look up from the sweet potato he was now happily devouring. "Liam got me this," he announced to the room at large, his voice filled with a ridiculous amount of satisfaction. "It's delicious." Ben blinked, a flicker of surprise in his eyes, before forcing a laugh. "Oh, cool. Enjoy." He practically dove into his own bed, pulling the covers up to his chin. I looked away, a strange warmth spreading through my chest. "It's just a potato," I grumbled, flopping onto my own bed. Why was he so thrilled? That weekend, I tried to lose myself in my usual audio drama marathon, but it was useless. A profound restlessness had taken root in me. No other voice actor could compare to the velvet taunts and sinful baritone of Alex. My mind, a traitorous entity, kept replaying the memory of his breathy, pained groan in the locker room stall. Heat prickled at my skin. Damn it. Flipping through my audio library in frustration, I searched for horror thrillers, anything to distract myself. But my thumb, seemingly with a will of its own, tapped on a Nyx fan favorites compilation. Clips with astronomical like counts, curated by fans who clearly shared my particular tastes. Alex's voice, raw and unfiltered, spilled through my headphones. It was a collection of outtakes and unguarded moments, the fragmented gasps for air between lines, the low growls of frustration at a misread word, the soft, breathy sighs of exertion. They were stitched together into an intoxicating, illicit symphony. Still not enough, his voice purred in one clip. How about now? Stay still, he commanded in another, the words a husky promise. Be good. Each panting, fragmented phrase burned hotter than steam, flushing me from my earlobes down to my collarbone. There was no way this guy made these sounds in a professional studio. The more I listened, the more my thoughts veered into decidedly inappropriate territory. Crap. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up abruptly. A quick glance around confirmed that at this hour on a Saturday afternoon, everyone else was at the library or in class. Perfect timing. I had the dorm to myself. Grabbing my Bluetooth earbuds, I locked myself in the bathroom, the one place with guaranteed privacy. I replayed the audio compilation, leaning against the cool tile of the wall, so engrossed that I didn't hear the dorm door open and close. I didn't hear the soft footsteps approaching. Right when things were getting intense, a series of sharp, decisive knocks rattled the bathroom door, making me jump so hard my phone nearly slipped into the toilet. "Who's in there?" a deep, velvety voice called out, laced with impatience. How much longer? It could only be Alex. My blood ran cold. Coming out now. I scrambled to straighten my clothes, my heart hammering against my ribs. In my frantic haste, one of my earbuds tumbled from my ear, clattering to the floor. The Bluetooth connection, severed from its primary receiver, defaulted to the last paired device, still in range. My phone. Just as I pulled the door open, the unseemly noises I'd been listening to, Alex's breathy moans and gravelly sighs, unleashed themselves from my phone's speakers, flooding the quiet hallway with explicit audio. Alex froze mid-knock, his hazel eyes narrowing as he registered the sounds. The sounds of his own voice, used in a way he had almost certainly never intended. I lunged for my phone, fumbling to stop the playback with trembling fingers. This was just some random pop song, I stammered, the lie so transparent it was painful. I wasn't, really. His lips quirked into a slow, devastatingly smug smile. He pointed a thumb towards my phone. Then why is it in your favorites playlist? My throat went dry. His gaze, hot and heavy, swept over my disheveled sweater and the flush on my cheeks. You've got the real thing right here, Liam, he murmured, his voice dropping to a low, conspiratorial purr. Why resort to recordings? Shut up, I whispered, trying to push past him. I wasn't. He blocked my exit, his hand landing on the door and smoothly pushing it closed behind us, trapping us both inside the small bathroom. What the hell? Open it, I demanded, shoving at his chest. He didn't budge. He backed me against the sink, his body caging mine in. His lips brushed against my ear as he switched effortlessly into that intoxicating Nick's baritone, the one from my headphones, the one from my dreams. Relax, his voice dipped, vibrating through my bones and turning my knees to jelly. If you like it so much, I'll let you listen to your heart's content. My knees buckled. His palms found my lower back, steadying me, holding me against him. Alex, I gasped. Quit squirming, he breathed, the words a hot scorch against my neck. Unless you want me touching more than this. He was reciting lines from his latest role, but the way his chest rumbled against mine, the way his hands held me, sent actual, crackling electricity under my skin. My brain finally, completely, short-circuited as his fingers slid beneath the hem of my sweater, his touch warm against my skin. Crap, Alex, I managed, my protest dissolving into a pathetic whimper when he nipped my earlobe. Shh, his laughter was a low vibration against my throat. You wanted the full experience, didn't you, Liam? You wanted to know what the other 18 points felt like. He paused, his voice softening, the teasing edge replaced by something raw and genuine. Turns out, you're not just interested in my voice, are you? He was right. He had always been right. The voice was just the beginning. It was the key that had unlocked a door inside me, and now, standing here, trapped in his arms, I knew I had to walk through it. I'm not, I admitted, the words a quiet surrender. Such denial, he chuckled, but it was a gentle sound now. Since you're my most loyal fan, I guess I have to give you some special treatment. He leaned in, and this time, it wasn't a line from a script. It wasn't a performance. It was just Alex, and his lips met mine in a kiss that was both a question and an answer, the beginning of a whole new, unspoken symphony.